There's a number most people never calculate, and it's not their salary. It's this: how many hours are in your day that nobody else can live for you? 24. That's the ceiling. No matter how disciplined you are, how early you wake up, how late you work, you cannot manufacture a 25th hour. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most of the ways we're taught to make money are quietly designed around that ceiling. They ask you to trade the very thing you can never get more of. So the real question isn't how do I work harder, it's how do I stop needing my hours to be the thing that's for sale. Let me show you what that looks like with two people who, on paper, started in the exact same place. Mara and Theo lived 2 houses apart. Both of them, in the same year, decided to start selling bread out of their kitchens. Mara had been perfecting one recipe for years, a rye loaf, dense and slightly sweet, that her grandmother used to make. She started baking it every morning before sunrise and walking it door to door in her neighborhood. People loved it. Within a few months, she had regulars. Within a year, she had a waiting list. She was, by any normal measure, a success story. She had turned a skill into an income. Theo, on the other hand, spent his first few months doing almost nothing that looked like progress. He wasn't baking much at all. He was writing things down, exact measurements, proofing times, oven temperatures, a step-by-step process so precise that someone who had never baked before could follow it and produce something consistent. Then he found 2 people in his neighborhood who needed work, taught them the process, and let them run the kitchen while he handled the parts that actually required him. Quality checks, new recipes, deciding which street to expand to next. A year in, Mara was baking more bread than ever, waking up earlier, turning down orders because she'd hit her physical limit. She had, without meaning to, built herself a very demanding job. If she got sick for a week, her income didn't just slow down. It stopped completely because the bread only existed when her hands were on it. Theo, that same year, had 3 kitchens running under his process in 3 different parts of town, none of which he personally baked in anymore. He took a 2-week trip to visit family. When he came back, the kitchens had kept running, the deliveries had kept going out, and his income for those 2 weeks looked almost identical to the 2 weeks before. Nothing about his skill as a baker had changed. What had changed was that his income no longer lived inside his own 2 hands. This is the split that decides almost everything about whether someone eventually gets free of work or spends their whole life circling it. It has nothing to do with effort. Mara worked at least as hard as Theo, probably harder in year 1. It has to do with where the income is actually stored. In Mara's case, it was stored in her. In Theo's case, it was stored in a process that other people could run. Now there's a category even more common than Mara's, and it's worth naming because so many people live inside it without realizing they've simply moved from one trap to a busier one. Imagine a third neighbor, a friend of Mara's, who watches her waiting list grow and decides to go further. She quits whatever she was doing before and opens a custom cake business. No more boss, no more schedule. Total independence. Except now, she's not just baking. She's doing her own bookkeeping at midnight, negotiating with suppliers, managing a social media page, replying to messages at all hours, and personally overseeing every single order because customers are paying for her specific artistic touch. She's traded one employer for dozens of them, all at once, and every one of them expects her personally to show up. She often works longer hours than she ever did before, for a version of freedom that turns out to require her to be everywhere at once. That's the pattern worth noticing. Trading your time directly for money and trading specialized effort for money look completely different from the outside. One wears a uniform, one calls itself an entrepreneur, but they share the same ceiling. Both stop producing income the moment the person themselves stops. Neither can scale past the hours available in one human day, no matter how skilled or beloved that person becomes. What Theo discovered by accident is that there's a way around the ceiling, and it isn't magic, it's arithmetic. One person has 24 hours. 10 people, each working reasonable hours, collectively have well over 200. If your income depends on a system that other people can operate, you're no longer limited by your own hours. You're limited by how many hours you can organize. That's the entire mechanical difference between a job, no matter how well paid, and a business that runs independent of its owner. It's not about working less. In the beginning, building the system usually means working more for less immediate reward, while the process gets designed and tested. The payoff comes later, when the system starts producing without needing you inside it every day. But there's a 4th layer to this, and it's the one people skip past because it feels like it belongs to people who already have money. It doesn't. It belongs to anyone willing to let their savings do work instead of sitting still. Picture a 4th character, a retired teacher living on the same street who has some modest savings and no interest in running a bakery, a kitchen, or anything else. She doesn't want to bake, manage, or build. What she does instead is put a small amount of her savings into Theo's expansion, as one of several people who help fund his fourth kitchen in exchange for a small ongoing share of what it earns. She contributes no labor. She shows up nowhere. Her money is now doing something her hours never could. It's working around the clock in a kitchen she's never even visited, growing slowly whether she's asleep, on vacation, or simply living her life. This is the layer people underestimate the most because it doesn't look dramatic. It looks like patience, owning a small piece of something that produces income. A share of a business, a stake in a property, a portion of a fund means your money, not your time, is now the thing generating the return. And money, unlike a person, doesn't get tired, doesn't need weekends, and doesn't stop compounding while you sleep. A modest amount left to grow steadily over many years, even at ordinary, unspectacular rates of return, tends to build into something far larger than most people expect. Not because of any trick, but because growth on top of growth on top of growth adds up in ways our intuition is genuinely bad at predicting. That's the whole engine behind long-term investing, and it has nothing to do with predicting the market or finding some secret. It has to do with giving ordinary growth enough time to become extraordinary. So here you have 4 completely different relationships to the same basic question. Where does the money come from? Time traded directly. Specialized effort traded personally. A system that runs on other people's time. Capital that grows on its own. The first 2 are capped by what one person can physically do in a day. The second 2 are not, because they've found a way to multiply beyond a single body's limits, either by organizing many people's hours or by letting money itself do the growing. Knowing this doesn't make the shift easy though, and it's worth being honest about why. Getting paid for your direct time or effort feels safe in a way that's almost physical. You did the work, you can see the result, you get paid on a schedule you can predict. Building a system or investing capital feels the opposite, uncertain, slow, sometimes embarrassing when it doesn't work on the first try. Mara could see every single morning exactly what her labor produced. Theo, in his first few months, mostly saw failed batches and wasted ingredients while his process was still being figured out. Most people quit at exactly that point, not because the idea was wrong, but because the discomfort of not seeing an immediate result feels like proof that it's not working. It usually isn't proof of that at all. It's just the part of the process that happens before a system exists to see results from. If you're currently in one of the first 2 categories, and almost everyone starts there, there's no shame in it. The shift doesn't require you to quit anything overnight or take some dramatic leap. It usually starts smaller and quieter than people expect. It starts with looking at where your money already goes and asking whether it's buying you something that will eventually pay you back, or something that will only ever cost you more. It starts with finding people who have already built what you're trying to build and being willing to learn from their mistakes instead of insisting on making every single one yourself. And it starts with what you do in the hours that aren't already spoken for. The ones before work, after work, on the weekend, because that's almost always where the system or the investment actually gets built quietly, alongside whatever is currently paying your bills. None of this means walking away from your income the moment you understand the framework. Theo still needed money to eat while he was writing down recipes instead of selling bread. The teacher still needed her original savings before any of it could grow. The bridge from trading your time to owning something that outlives your hours is rarely instant, and anyone who tells you it is usually selling something. What actually closes that bridge, slowly and unglamorously, is consistency. Small, repeated decisions to build the system instead of just doing the task, to grow the capital instead of just spending the paycheck. Made over months and years until one day the income in front of you no longer needs you standing there to keep existing. Mara eventually did change course, not by abandoning what she'd built, but by writing down her own process the way Theo had, training someone else to bake her grandmother's recipe exactly the way she did, and stepping back one morning at a time until the bread kept walking out the door whether her hands were the ones that shaped it or not. It took her far longer than it took Theo, mostly because she started later. But the ceiling she'd been baking underneath for years finally lifted, not because she got better at baking, but because she stopped needing to be the one who baked. That's the actual shift underneath everything. Not working harder within the same structure, but changing which structure your effort is going into. Until the income in your life stops depending on the hours in your day and starts depending on something that can keep going long after you've stopped counting them.